Real estate investment practice problem using Excel. Adjustable rate mortgage or ARM with no caps, part number 5. Get ready because we're raising the stakes with real estate. Here we are in our Excel worksheet. If you have access to the Excel worksheet, would like to follow along, note that we have 3 tabs on down below: the example tab, the practice tab, the blank tab. Let's take a look at them now, starting with the example tab. In prior presentations, all the way on the left-hand side, we put together our standard amortization table with a fixed rate so we can compare and contrast it to what happens when we have the adjustable rate. Then we went to the ARM, or the adjustable rate mortgage. We took a look at the indexes, noting that those are going to be projections when we're making decisions out into the future. And then we're going to base our rates on them, which will typically be given with a margin. We're not talking about any caps at this point in time. We then looked at our payment calculation, ending balance calculations. Ending balance calculations being calculated 2 different ways. One, from the information from the table that we're putting together as we construct this data with the changes in the rates as we go, and 2, with a formula. We then calculated our cash flow on a yearly basis and then calculated our IRR, internal rate of return, the rate at which this series of payments would equal 0. In essence, it's kind of like comparing to the interest rate on a fixed rate loan, which would be, say, this 10% that we had over here. We can use that to do some kind of comparisons between the two to see what our options would be between 2 types of loans. And we can use that same tool, as we'll work with now, to think about other kind of options. In other words, if I'm projecting this out into the future, there's more risk going on. I'm not sure what exactly the IRR will be. I can use different projections to try to estimate what it will be. I could try to think about what will happen if I have it out for 3 years versus 5 years, and so on and so forth, using a similar type of tool, which we can do on a yearly basis, this being an estimate because it's on a yearly basis, or on a monthly basis. It could be easier to pull out the information by creating then a pivot table, which we did in a prior presentation, breaking the information on a year-by-year basis as opposed to the total 360 amortization table. And now we're going to be working with the IRR calculations, just thinking about how we can use those tools to make projections, comparing and contrasting different scenarios into the future. So the second tab then has pre-formatted worksheets that you can then fill in as we go and do less formatting. The third tab, we're going to be putting this together as we go from scratch. One scratch made all this. We started with a scratch, and then we got all this stuff that happened. Turned it into the Grand Canyon, that one little scratch. Okay, so we got our information here. So the same kind of stuff. We've got our balance on this side. Now we want to think about the internal rate of return calculation. Now I'm going to start doing that with the entire 30 years. Notice we made our amortization table 30 years, even though we stopped the index after 5 years. So it's a 30-year loan. We only projected out the index for 5 years. So that last year 5, this number on year 5, we copied it all the way down because we don't know what's happening in year 6. So we could assume, year 6 and on will be in essence the same at that point in time. And let's first look at it then on a 30-year projecting out for that time frame, and then we'll make some other projections for shorter time frames. So let's go back on over here, just using our IRR tool. I made this cell a little bit shorter here. And then we're going to make this, let's call this an ARM. This is going to be the ARM, and this is going to be the cash flow. So let's get our cash flow going here. The cash needs to be flowing. Font group, we're going to make it black and white. Let's wrap the text and center it. And then I'm going to put our periods from 0, 1, 2 down to 3, 6, 5, taking the months for 30 years here. Pulling that on down all the way down to 3, 6, 5, or 360, not 5, 360. That we're talking about a 30-year period times 12, 360, center that. Then we're going to have our cash flow, which started off on an inflow, which is the 100,000. That's what we can imagine we got from the loan, which we then used to buy the home. And then we're paying the cash flows. Outflows are going to be negative of the cash outflow of the 734. Copying that all the way down, double clicking on the fill handle. and copying that all the way down to the 360 payments. Scrolling all the way down to the end of the 360 payments. Let's go ahead and total this up. Total equals the SUM, shift 9, and then we'll go all the way up to the summit of the column so that we can sum it up. So we're at the summit of the column here. Have a drink of coffee, enjoy the view, and then we'll hit enter and go on back down. So there we are in the 273,186. We're going to underline that. Let's do the IRR calculation. No one calls it that, but they should. It just doesn't sound quite right. But the calculation. This is the rate at which this series of payments would be 0. So we're going to say equals the IRR, shift 9, and then do the same kind of thing as we did with the summit thing, getting up to the summit of the column, but this time so we can calculate the IRR. If I hit enter, that would give us the monthly and we want the yearly, so I'm going to double click on it, go to the end of it, times 12, yearly there we go, yearly So 12.2219. That's if we estimate it all the way out. Now remember, if I go back up top, the rates that we looked at, because we don't have anything else funny going on like points or anything like that, which you could add to the mix, but the rates that we had here were the 8, 12, 15, 17, and so on. So estimating this out, we're basically saying the IRR over this time, kind of like the average, but the rate at which the series of payments would be 0 would be that what we calculated, that 12 something that we calculated. Now let's do the same thing, but let's say, well, what if we took it out and what if we're estimating this only to happen over 3 years? Let's say we're looking 3 years out, which would be like 36, 3 times 12, 36 payments, and see what would happen. Because we could say, if I'm picking up the ARM, I might be saying, hey, look, I'm picking it up so that I'm planning on selling it sometime within, 5 years or something like that. And we could try to say, well, what would happen if I did that in a 3 years versus a 5 years, and try to calculate our scenarios that could be taking place. So let's do it again, this time for a 3-year frame. Obviously, the IRR will differ depending on the number of years because we have these different rates that are being applied out here. So let's say we have the ARM cash flow. This is 3-year. Let's say 3-year. Give us a little bit more information here. Centering this, black, white. We'll center it, wrap it, center it, and then we're going to bring this down from 1 to, let's say 0, 1, 2. 0, 1, 2, tie my shoelace, please. And then we'll grab that and we'll bring it on down to 36 payments. 36. And then center it, alignment, center. And this is going to be equal to the 100,000. We got the negative flow, so same outflows are taking place. So that for year 1, 734, then it increased to 1,024, and then it went to 1,410, and so on. And we stopped. Well, I got carried away looking at the wrong. We only went down to 36. 36, there we go. And then we're going to total this. Wait a second. Hold your horse here. Hold your horse. We're not totaling it up yet because we have to say that we're going to have that ending balance. We got to hold our horse because the horse looks like it needs a hug. Would you hold your horse for a second because it looks tired? So we're going to say this 36 here, we want to say that we're going to have to pay off this ending balance at that time frame, and that's going to be the 98,510. So the 98,510 and the 1,254. So we're going to take those two. This is going to be negative of the 98,510 minus then the outflow of the payment that's going to happen at that time period would be the payments we made during the period and then the loan balance we'd have to pay off. So we'll say, okay, now we can total it. Now you can let the horse roam free and continue with the total process equals the SUM, shift 9, go up to the summit, close it up, and then we want the IRR, the rate at which this series of payments would equal 0 equals the IRR. The IRR, and then let's make that a percent. This is the monthly amount, number group, percent, adding some decimals. Let's go ahead and double click on it and multiply it times 12 to give us the yearly. So now we're at the 11.39 if we were to hold on to this for 3 years, right? And let's do it one more time to compare it out for the 5 years that we projected out. So in this little scenario we had over here, we've projected it out in essence to a 5-year time frame, perhaps because we can imagine that's how long we expect to hold it. So we might be saying, oh, what if I hold it, 3 to 5 years or something like that? Then what would be my IRR, calculation in that case? We can then say, all right, and we kind of did that here, but we did it on a yearly basis, so that's somewhat of an estimate, be a little bit more exact if we were to do it on a month by month, because this estimate is assuming those payments happening at the end of the period, in that case a year, when in actuality they would be happening on 12 equal payments throughout the year. So let's do it one more time, or this may not be the last time, but let's do it again. Let's do it again in any case. So we're going to say this is going to be the ARM cash flow 5 years. 5 years this time. Let's just go and paintbrushy this one. Home tab, clipboard, format painter, paintbrushy. There we go. And then we'll copy this one down 0, 1, 2 and select those 3. Autofill handle. We're bringing this on down. How many? 5 times 12 is 60. 5 times 12 is 60. So we're going down 60 months, 5 years. 60 months, 5 years, right there. There it is. That's where we want to be. That's where we want to be. Alignment and center. And then we're going to start off with the same inflow of the 100,000 we used to buy the home. Outflows are still going to be the same amounts, but this time we're going to take them. Let's take them from the first column, because I want to go all the way down to 60 payments, and the other one stops at like 3 years. So we'll copy this down 60 time frames, 6 months, 60 months. There we got it. And then that last one, we got to total it up. So we got to total up the last one, because the last one really represents the fact that we're going to have to pay off the loan balance of the 97,732 minus the 1,029. So there we have it. Now we can total it. Total equals the sum, shift 9, all the way up, totaling it to 63,143. Then we can take the IRR, the rate at which this series of payments would be 0, equals the IRR of these payments, otherwise known as the This will be the monthly amount. Let's make that a percentage up top, adding a couple decimals. Double clicking on it, going to the end of it, multiplying times 12. So we got the 12.44%. Again, that should be close to what we got over here. Right there, 12.43 that we got here, with the assumptions that they happened at the end of the period. So pretty close, pretty close. Let's do it one more time just so we can kind of think. You can also do this with the pivot table, right? So we'll just take this same information from the pivot table, which you kind of have right here. So the pivot table for the IRR will be a little bit redundant than this table that you have on the left. But again, just note that the pivot table is another tool that you can use when you're kind of analyzing these kind of loans, which you want to do some more what if analysis, and and try to think of more kind of projections, because you have less certainty in the future. So you might use your table to do this, breaking it out on a year by year. Here we got our 5 years again, basically broken out, so we could try to take it on a year by year basis. So we're going to say, let's just copy. Well, no, let's do the same thing. I'll say this is this way, and this is the ARM, and this is cash flow in years rather than months. And then we'll paintbrush this thing, home tab, clipboard, format painter, paint that format the same. And then we'll say 0, 1, 2, and this time only going out to 5, because we're talking 5 years this time. That's what we're talking. And then we're going to center that. And then we'll take our balance on the left-hand side. We've got our payments. So here's our 5 payments. Now this is a little tricky, because I would like to have those negatives. So I'm going to do a fancy Excel maneuver. Fancy Excel maneuver going to happen here. We're going to say copy on here. Now I'd like to paste them negative. I'm going to try to paste it down here first, but I can't do it straight up negative yet because what I want to do first is paste it without the formatting, without any references. So I'm going to paste it first, 1, 2, 3. So there's the 1, 2, 3 paste, and then I'm going to copy it again, copying it again, and this time I'm going to paste it up here special because they're just numbers now. They don't have any format or references in them, and I'm going to paste it special. I'm going to do a super special, not one of these ones, but like super special down here. So paste special, and then we're going to go down and subtract. And that should put a negative in front of them. There it did exactly what I did, but I put it in the wrong spot. Let's pull it down 1, and it should be going 5 years out. So a bit of fanciness, a little bit of fanciness right there for you. So this is going to be equal to the 100,000. Let's center this last one, and this is going to be the total. This last total again needs also, once again, I need to say minus the 12,375, which is right there on the payments, minus the 97,732. 97,732 minus 97,732. There we have it. Okay. Then we're going to say equals the sum of these items and the IRR. The IRR. Arg. That's how a pirate says it. Arr. But it's really er. Okay, that's not the IRR. It goes the IRR of these, closing it up, multiplying times 12, making it a percent, adding some decimals, and something funny happened here. Hold on a second. Something not right. There's something amiss. And that is that we don't multiply it times 12 because we're on years now. We're on years. So that gives us the 12.4. So again, we basically summarized the same data we did over here. This one being that little less exact calculation. So we got the 12.43 versus the 12.44. And you could see that 12.43 we also calculated in essence on this table right there. So this will give you an idea of basically a more exact idea on what your costs will be. And again, you could do some comparisons using that. So you could do like cash flow comparisons, and then you could use your IRR comparisons. You could do some best case and worst case type of scenarios in these situations. Let's just add some formatting. I'm going to select these cells here, these columns, and I'm going to try to make them all the same size like that. Let's do our blue and bold. Blue and bold. We're blue and bold. We're going to copy these things right down here. Blue and borders. Blue and borders. That's what we want. It's bold too. Blue, bold with borders. So we got the home tab, font group. We're going to borderize it, all borders, and then bluenize it. Bluenized and borderized. There we go. Let's do it right here too. Same process, same thing happening. Home tab, font group, borderized, bluenized. And right here, border blue. Border blue. So we'll do that here. Borders in blue, and one more time. Uno, vez, mas, por favor. So there we have it. There's my Spanish. I've been practicing. I watch Star Wars in Spanish. No está mi padre. No. Okay, I don't know what I'm talking. We're going to underline here. Let's just underline this last one. Here we go. So way down here. There we go. Okay, I think that's it. So there's some ideas of it. We're gonna continue on with some of the arms in the future, but we'll be getting into other. Let's make this one blue and bordered. This one too needs to be blue and bordered, like so. Like there we go. All right. Okay, so next in the future we'll do a similar process, but we'll be adding caps which will complicate the matter a bit.